If you're an edgy, lonely, anxiety-ridden millennial like me, then you've probably heard of a little tech startup called Reddit. Reddit is a social media platform comprised of topic-specific groups called subreddits, which can be dedicated to anything from dank memes, political discourse, heartwarming stories of human kindness, recipes, convincing the world that birds aren't real, which is true, or copious amounts of age-restricted, explicit adult viewing material. A particular subreddit by the name of r/antiwork has been making headlines recently due to a media appearance on Fox News by a moderator who manages the group. A media appearance which by nearly all accounts went very poorly.
I don't understand really what this is about, except it sounds like maybe people are just being lazy. Are you encouraging people to be lazy? What would you teach, Dorian?
Philosophy mostly, just introduction to philosophy, critical thinking, reason, stuff like that.
The moderator in question was woefully unprepared to appear on one of the most hostile news organizations in existence, and unfortunately, but understandably, failed to convey what the group is all about. Since a valuable opportunity for the group to share its message and values was embarrassingly squandered on national TV, I thought it would be neat to explore what anti-work really does believe in. Just to be clear, I don't think this should be an excuse to harass the moderator. Yes, it was very cringe, but they've probably gotten enough death threats to last them through the winter. The group describes itself as a subreddit for those who want to end work, are curious about ending work, want to get the most out of a work-free life, want more information on anti-work ideas, and want personal help with their own job/work-related struggles. Anti-work was selected for a media appearance due to its explosion in popularity late 2021, going from a group of a couple 100,000 to nearly 1.7 million at the time of me writing this script. People on the subreddit ask for advice on how to handle a work situation, share memes that highlight the absurdity of modern work culture, vent about horrible bosses, share stories of how they resigned from a toxic workplace, or of how they've been utterly screwed over by a toxic workplace. Any given day, you'll find thousands of relatable stories from workers worldwide who are fed up with the modern workplace, which anti-work describes as one where you are expected to work despite your own individual needs or desires. Work puts the needs and desires of managers and corporations above and beyond workers, often to the point of abuse through being overworked and underpaid. From cubicles to construction sites, workers globally come together on anti-work to express their discontent at work and discuss an alternative reality, where work is less humiliating and pays us not only enough to survive, but enough so we can sprinkle a healthy dose of joy into our lives as well. Now, the group is called anti-work, implying that they believe no one should have jobs. But as the group outlines in their FAQ, if you define work as any activity or purposeful intent towards some goal, then sure. That's not how we define it though. We're not against effort, labor, or being productive. We're against jobs as they are structured under capitalism in the state, against exploitative economic relations, against hierarchical social relations at the workplace. See, there's an important distinction to make between being against the idea of working in general and being against the way in which modern workplaces are organized and the attitudes which modern employers hold. Though some people in the group may be unemployed, and one might agree with Fox News' take that these people are lazy, but maybe we're better off listening to what Karl Marx had to say on the matter. Bourgeois society ought long ago to have gone to the dogs through sheer idleness. For those of its members who work acquire nothing, and those who acquire anything do not work. In other words, if laziness could kill a society, capitalism would already be dead. As it functions today, employees who work hard gain very little in comparison to the wealthiest capitalists. Now, many of the folks at Anti-Work are employed and may even enjoy their jobs, but it is the culture which surrounds the modern workplaces that they take issue with. By culture, I mean being made to work long hours without adequate breaks, not having enough time off to do the things that make us happy, not being paid a living wage, having to put up with insufferable bosses who barely qualify for the minuscule amount of authority granted to them, a general unwillingness for companies to make basic accommodations for their workers, and an inadequate amount, or in some places, a complete lack of paid sick leave. Which, seeing as there's a bit of a deadly globe-spanning virus ripping through every last pocket of human society, you'd think sick leave is something employers would be open to. But most of them aren't, making for one of the many reasons that anti-work has amassed such a large following. The pandemic has shown an industrial-strength spotlight on the horrific and unsustainable workplace practices all across the world, leading an increasing number of employees to see the modern workplace for what it is: exploitation of our labor to generate wealth for the people above us, at the expense of our time, energy, mental health, and in some cases, even our lives. Tyson meat plant managers in Waterloo, Iowa could personally confirm that, seeing as they placed bets on how many of their employees would get COVID-19 while publicly denying the fact that it was presently spreading through many of their factories.
Please disperse! Nothing to see here!
Around 1,000 of the 2,800 employees at the plant contracted the virus, and at least 5 of them died. According to one article, there's probably a lot more that died too. Which sucks for the people who got sick, but I'm sure some of those managers made good money toying with the lives of their workers, so it all balanced out nicely. The pandemic has also demonstrated many companies' ability to allow employees to work from home, something they chose not to implement until it affected their ability to generate revenue. Many employees embraced this new reality, where they now no longer had to spend a large part of their day commuting to and from work, could do their job comfortably in their own space, and no longer had to deal with a petty manager breathing down their necks or coworkers insistent on making conversation about what they're having for lunch. For the first time maybe since they entered the workforce, employees all of a sudden had time and energy for themselves and their families, leading them to start getting funny little ideas. They started thinking, hey, how come they never let us work from home before? Or, why is my manager even necessary considering I do this job entirely unsupervised? Or, wait, if we can work from home, do offices only exist for employers to exercise more control over our lives while propping up the commercial real estate industry? All reasonable questions, and anti-work has become a space well suited to have them answered. It has also most importantly become a space that empowers workers to stand up to their bosses. The top post on the subreddit is a screenshot someone posted of a conversation between them and their boss, who saw fit to chastise them for having the audacity to sit down while doing their job, on account of them having a broken foot. The exchange was short and sweet, ending with the employee eloquently informing their boss why everyone that works under them is miserable and exactly where they should shove their job. Dozens of similar posts appear in the group, with hundreds of workers sharing stories of how they stood up to their boss, demanded to be paid what they're worth, or exacted revenge on a company that didn't appreciate them. Most of the stories follow a similar pattern. Employee makes a reasonable request for better pay or treatment. Employer whines indignantly at the employee's audacity to expect more from their job. Employee resigns. Boss begs them not to. Employee follows through and walks away from an explosion in slow motion, and doesn't even look back at it. After seeing more and more people resign like this online or in their own workplace, workers are starting to see the true power that their labor has. Employers are routinely shocked when their workers stand up to them due to the decades of diminished employee rights, but we're starting to see a trend of people putting themselves and their livelihoods before their work. I can comfortably state that most people understand work is necessary to keep society functioning, and most of us do have a desire to contribute our part. But for too long, doing our part has meant sacrificing our time, hobbies, and families to meet the demands of employers driven only by the pursuit of profit. Some of them are now starting to get the message that human beings aren't actually robots. It turns out, if we spend the better part of our lives scurrying through a fulfillment center while not being paid enough to even drive ourselves home, we tend to become rather miserable. These baby steps towards class consciousness are positive, and are exactly what we need to start building a working class coalition capable of putting power back in the hands of employees. Unfortunately, we still aren't where we need to be yet. Anti-work makes for a great space for workers to discuss their situations and gain a wider understanding regarding the state of the modern workplace. But as of now, employers still hold far more power than workers. For every employee who leaves their toxic workplace for something better, hundreds more are stuck in the same cycle of workers' rights abuses and exploitation. Contrary to what the brainstems over at Fox News would have you think, not everyone has the ability to quit a job they desperately need to survive, and many don't have the ability or desire to uproot their lives and move somewhere that might have more job opportunities. Whether or not we work isn't a choice. It is something we are coerced into doing at the threat of homelessness, starvation, and death. People will continue to endure the continuous hurt and humiliation for the sake of them and their families so long as it remains a necessity. We have our work cut out for us in convincing people that work as it exists today is entirely unnecessary, and that a different set of conditions and expectations surrounding work culture is possible. And it is possible! It used to be normal for someone to work upwards from 80 hours per week, with one day off if they were lucky. We now understand the average work week to be 40 hours, 5 days a week. But even though this is significantly less than what it used to be, it still kinda sucks. That's not even counting the millions of employees who work far more than that, willingly or otherwise. Workers' rights movements everywhere are possible for the standards we have today. But these movements are now few and far between, with a majority of workers having no means to organize or fight back against oppressive employers. Groups like Anti-Work show that it's possible for employees to once again recognize their value as workers, and to then point those feelings of anger, humiliation, disaffection, and pain towards the people causing it for their own personal gain. We have far more power now than what we've had in a long time, and people are starting to see that their resistance to unfair treatment can make a difference. Though it is by no means an organized coalition by which workers can leverage their collective power, Anti-Work represents a long overdue shift in worker mentality. Raising awareness of the plight of the working class is essential to one day building a movement capable of fighting back against the decades of employer domination. The more we see groups like this popping up, the more people become sympathetic to a message of worker solidarity, and the more they'll be inclined to join a legitimate workers' rights movement. Keep posting dank anti-capitalist memes. Keep sharing screenshots of conversations with your garbage boss. Keep exposing your workplaces for the atrocities they commit, and most importantly, keep not working.